Hey, how's it going, everyone? I know it's been a little while, but I'm here. Uh, this is how life rolls sometimes. But yeah, welcome to Joe Boyle Life again. We're outside because it's nice out, and I was tired of being inside. So there it is. All right. Today's video thoughts that I want to get out is how to take beauty and wide open spaces with you. And I'll get into how that makes sense in a second. I wanted to talk about why suffering is good and even needed. I've had some experiences that that was a squirrel that just ran by, and literally I get distracted. Like, squirrel, huh? So, yeah, suffering is good and even needed. I had some experiences that kind of illustrated that, and things kept popping up in life. I recently got back from Durango, Colorado. Went out there, did some backpacking with some friends. Out there, being in the wilderness, time at the hotel, time in the cabin. Had some good conversations. Got to reconnect with people and make some new friends. Even it was cool. Like I said, there's been a couple of reoccurring trends and conversations that kept coming up, not only on the trip, but for me personally, before and after. And when that happens, I try to take a look at why that is and what it is and see what I can do about it. Um, First of all, let me just say that Colorado is beautiful. I've been there once before, but I really liked where I was this time, even more. It was great. There were mountains, lakes, fields, the cabin I mentioned, meadows. Did I mention rivers? Rivers are sweet. Um, Waking up to sunrise coming on the mountains. I mean, come on. It's freaking awesome. Wildlife. We had actually had a cow, a tagged and branded one cow that came into our camp and actually ate my buddy's sock one morning, but he did throw it back up, so I guess that's good. I'm sure he's appreciative of it. But yeah, so being outside, I hope you can hear me over the cicadas and maybe some airplanes. But so I think there's something about beauty and nature that changes us. I think nature, specifically, and big spaces and green fields, it gives us a sense of meaning and transcendence. I think it gives us peace. At least it gives me peace, and it just helps put things in a right priority. It can settle you down. Not always, and depends what else you got going on, but it's definitely a worthy avenue to to look at if you're stressed out and whatnot. But and speaking of that, on this trip, my new friend Steve shared a quote. I guess it's from Einstein, actually. Go figure. It says, "Look deep into nature, and you will understand everything better." And that has stuck with me. I think there's a lot of truth in that. Um, there's even research that says like wide open spaces, like however it works in our brain, it gives us that feeling of like eternal transcendence. Things are bigger than ourselves. Awe, wonder, all that stuff. Um, Bottom line is, I think nature and whatever we perceive as amazing affects us and like sets things right in our mind. Kind of like I said, reprioritizes things on a soul level. It sounds pretty deep, but that's why we're here, right? I think it puts our life, our feeling, our hopes, dreams, desires, aspirations into a right order, or at least a better order. Um, I think it's especially true when it's something bigger than us, something bigger than we can make or build. Figuratively and metaphorically. A huge green field, for instance, with trees and rivers that we saw, a mountain, a sunset, sunrise. And that got me thinking of like pictures of galaxies and the universe, that NASA throws out there. You get the idea. I think. I hope. Um, but yeah, seeing that stuff, you're just like, whoa, cool. Um, yeah, if you have any ideas on why that affects us the way it does, let me know, because I'm kind of interested in what you think. All right, this video is going long, but you know what? So be it. I hope you like it. A couple of other things that kept coming up. So that was the beauty, and I want to take that. I want to take that with me, like wherever I go. I need to be outside more. It's just the amount of peace I came back with was just like, just like a reset. And I need like more than just one trip a year. I need like at least some smaller trips where I'm outside, maybe some overnighters, like backpacking. I don't know. So another theme that kept coming up is the idea of suffering. And at the very least, I want to say suffering in the way of things just going wrong. I know that you may not classify that as suffering per se, but just bear with me for a moment. I know there's like sickness, cancer, injuries, and stuff like that. Um, and that is definitely suffering. So let's just start small and then extrapolate that to the bigger stuff. So a tiny example, but a good teacher, I think, is this. Before I went out to Colorado, there were wildfires that closed off the where we'd planned to go. And this happened about 2 days before the trip. And in that instance, all the planning, all the booked flights, hotels and cabins, everything that was paid for, just went up in smoke. You like that pun? Because there's wildfires? Okay, the cabin didn't really burn down, but you get it. Um, we're looking at, like, do we have to cancel everything? Can we, like, rearrange some stuff? We did figure out another place to go nearby that we could do some hiking and fishing, and it worked out great, actually. Obviously, I don't know how the other trip would have been, but it was really cool how this worked out. So this is a bit of suffering, and what I mean here is like the unpredicted change that was out of our control. I guess you can say that on maybe one of the most basic definitions of suffering is like when things change out of our control, because that hurts us. Um, you know, I won't get into the whole control thing again, but maybe I will, but not right now. But here's what I think that suffering and that realization of what's out of our control, um, it made us become more aware, present, introspective, reflective. In those last 2 days leading up to the trip, and during the trip itself. I was talking to my buddy Sean, I think one of the last days, we were in the hotel, showering after being 5 days in the back country before we got on a plane next to people. Um, and it was really tough for him, he said, because he was like planning on this trip, looking forward to it for a long time. And everything seemed to derail it. The wildfires, near missed flights, he had some trouble with that. There's some other, I think, bad weather, if I remember now correctly. And then with our buddy Steve, there's deaths in the family. Just everything seemed to be against it, and the timing of this was it seemed a little surreal. Um, so we're talking about that, me and Sean, and he said a lot of profound things. I don't know if he realizes it, Sean, but a lot of things you said were really cool. And one thing that really stuck with me, and I think I made a point to it, um, was you said you can't examine yourself when things are going well. It's like, yeah, like there's no time for self-reflection. That kind of shook me. I mean, it's a little bit obvious, I suppose. Like, when is there time or the need or desire for self-reflection and self-examination if things are going well? And suffering, I think, of any degree can produce that reset, that look at yourself, make you look at your priorities, your goals, your wants, your desires, all that stuff. It brings to the surface things that we don't like, and that we want to change. And I would say even things we're not even aware of that we want to change, or maybe only slightly aware. I know for me, when I come back from a trip, that's when things start coming to the surface, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to go back to, X, or I can't think of a thing right now, but I want to change this. This gives what I have to go back to gives me a feeling of like, ugh, and I don't like that. So yeah, there's that. It reminds me of another quote I heard recently. There's a purpose in when things go wrong, in things going wrong. There's a purpose in things going wrong, and it seems true over and over again. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, I hate suffering. I think we all hate suffering. I hate setbacks. It makes me feel like a failure. It makes me angry because it means the road I had hoped for just reached a bridge that was out, or it's like you run over a big pothole and you get a flat tire, something like that. Like you have literally been derailed. So no, I know no one, including myself, is excited for suffering. And you can't really derive any meaning from it in the midst of it. It's really hard to see. I think sometimes you can, but not always. And I was listening to this podcast. I think it was on the plane, or maybe I listened to it before or after. I don't remember. But it's a podcast by a guy named Lewis Howes, I think you pronounce it. He's a former NFL player, and he went to podcasting. Talked about life and interviews people. Basically talked about the meaning of life and how to live well. Basically, there's a lot of podcasts out there today like that. I wonder if that's saying something about our. Have we always talked about that? Is it just more prevalent, accessible because podcasts exist, or have we reached a point in our technological world here where we're just like we're losing the meaning to ourselves? I don't know. Whatever, or to meaning into life or what it is. Think about that for a while because I don't know. But yeah, he had this guy on his show by the names of James Lawrence. You know, you might have heard of him if you're into any sort of. I didn't. But if you're into triathlons and stuff like that, this guy's a beast. He did 50 full Ironman triathlons, and I wrote this down. That's okay. He did 50 full Ironman triathlons in 50 consecutive days in 50 different states. Now swimming. So one triathlon is swimming 2.4 miles, biking 112 miles, and running a full marathon. That's one Ironman triathlon. He did 50 in a row in different states. That's Hawaii and Alaska. All right, just let that sink in for a second. This dude is a testament on what the human body can endure if you have the motivation. And he had some pretty profound things to say on this podcast, as you might imagine after going through all that. One of which was his take on suffering. And he said, put yourself through some strategically planned pain. Either him or Lewis said that. They were talking back and forth, the host, Lewis. When you put your body through something that your mind is saying no, it forces you to think. And it's a form of suffering, self-inflicted suffering, but it's good. It helps you see things better. And he says this around the about the 25-minute, 38-second mark in the podcast. I'll include a link if you want to hear it and listen to this guy. And earlier in the interview, he says, be intentionally uncomfortable. It helps you be, I think he said more aware. I can't remember if I'm saying that now or he did, but it was the same theme of like suffering is needed and good. It makes you more able to help people. That's what he said too. So one last thought here. Actually, I think I have probably like 3 or 4 last thoughts, but I was talking to the friend the other day, and he's going through some bouts of family trouble with sickness, and it seems to have no end, and the doctors have no clue what's causing it. And we both agree, obviously, that the situation sucks. But at the same time, we're able to be a bit more caring and understanding, sympathetic, empathetic towards other people, we've realized and admitted, once we're through it, once we're through suffering. So that's another good thing about suffering. Pain seems to tie us together. It seems to make us more human, I would say, as I look back on some hard things in my life and through it. And having come through it, I feel like I'm a better human, generally speaking, more empathetic. Over the Rhine, one of my favorite bands, because I feel like their lyrics are so profound on a consistent basis. They say, pain is our mother, it helps us recognize each other. And that's another one of those truths that blew my mind and still does. So one or two other things that the James Lawrence from the interview said, also known as the Iron Cowboy. Thought that was cool. When he was talking about love and pain and suffering, he started talking about his kids and how he wants to be the best father he can be to them. And he said to love them unconditionally at the highest level is to allow them to suffer. Hold on a second. That's not something we hear very often. I feel like I've felt that, but you don't hear people say it. I think, well, let me finish this other thought. He said that suffering makes us learn, grow, and adapt. Right. I know I've heard this elsewhere, but pain is unfortunately our best teacher. Sucks, but you learn quick from it and pretty deep. Like, when you're a kid, you touch something hot, you build some neural pathways real quick, saying, I ain't gonna do that again. You know what I'm saying? So it hurts, it sucks, and this guy lost everything in his business before he became this triathlon beast. And he said in the interview, that he wishes everyone could lose everything and hit rock bottom at some point in their life, because he is so much better for it. And I think we can all agree that we've seen and heard that's kind of what's needed for a lot of people, especially with addicts. They need to hit rock bottom before they can fully recover. Speaking of going out to Colorado, after a wildfire destroys the land, when the trees and the bushes and all that stuff comes back, it's usually stronger and healthier. There's even like new species that pop up, I've heard. Um, I don't. So I think that's true. I've heard it way more than once. So, um, oh yeah, like after this is my cosmos mind thinking. After a star explodes, it spreads out its matter throughout the galaxy, and that makes new stars, new planets. And it's just a recurring theme. This is an extrapolation, but out of death comes life. It seems contradictory, but it's all over in the universe, in nature, and I think it makes sense. It would just keep on holding true in our lives too. And just to clarify a little bit, what the James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy, said in his interview, when he said him and his wife allow his kids to suffer, it wasn't. He loves his kids. It wasn't like I'm gonna hurt them. He basically just doesn't want to be too soft on them. And I was glad he said that. It blew me away. And it kind of blew me away too, because at the same time, my thoughts immediately went to God and all the pain and crap and suffering we all go through. And it was cool that even with like this Iron Cowboy is like, he's human and he has a limited space and perspective, compared to God or a God, however you look at that. And he can see the advantages of suffering, and not allowing things to be too easy. It just got me thinking, like, is that why there's suffering in the world? Is that why God doesn't take it all away? Does it somehow make us better people? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not talking about like murderers and rapists and things like that. That's like a whole different level of crap. But I'm thinking more personal things, like that are out of our control, like injuries and sickness and freak accidents. It's still really hard to imagine God allowing stuff like that, because it might make us better. But if he loves us as this Iron Cowboy loves his kids, I think that reasoning has to be at least a small part in his thinking. I am not, by all means, do I think it's all of it. I don't understand all of it. I'm just trying to understand something. So I'm not claiming anything, really. Well, I guess I'm claiming a small part, but I hope you get the idea. I know it's a pretty huge conversation. But anyway, and through that, I was gonna say, I think we can still question God, be angry at him, and ask him why. And I don't think it's bad or wrong. At the very least, it's natural and human. So I think that makes it normal. Again, I don't think that makes it bad. Maybe I'm wrong, but whatever. So I included the interview, like I said. The link below or in the YouTube description, and that's it for this one. It's a long one, but it's been a while, so soak it in. All right, seriously though, thanks for watching. Talk to you later.